Hey there YouTube, welcome back to Beyond the 529. When it comes to putting together a college funding plan, one of the most critical components that parents have to figure out is what is the most effective way to save for your students. And one of the most efficient tools out there to be able to save for college is what's called a 529 savings plan. And there's a couple different ways that you can open these accounts. And one of the biggest questions that parents have to answer is, do I open one account and put all of my savings in there and then slice that account up for each of my different students? Or should I open up a different account for each one of my students? So in today's video, I'm going to take you through some of the pros and cons of opening up an individual account for each one of your students. I'm Mike Bink, founder and president of Equivest Advisors and Beyond the 529, the YouTube channel dedicated to helping families become more educated consumers of college education so they can lower their costs as much as possible. We specialize in late-stage college planning and can help you identify strategies that will lower your cost of college by thousands of dollars. To learn more about how you can become our client and get your plan started today, please click on the button in the description below. After you're done watching this video, please make sure to check out our website, equivestadvisors.com, where you can access our free masterclass to help you learn how to pay less for college, minimize your student loan debt without sacrificing your retirement. So what is a 529 savings plan? 529 plans offer tax-deferred investment growth and tax-free withdrawals if you use the funds that you've saved to pay for what's called qualified educational expenses for your beneficiary, which is normally going to be your student. Parents can use a single 529 plan to save for their entire family, or parents can set up an individual account for each one of their beneficiaries or students. If you set up one account for the entire family, all you need to make sure that you do is when you go to use the funds, you'll have to change the beneficiary from one student to another. There's no cost to do this, and it's a pretty straightforward process, but it's an extra step that can be avoided if you have an individual account for each student. So pro number one of having a different account for each of your students is that you can customize the mix of investments for each child. So if your children are different ages and they have different investment time horizons, then you can pick a different mix of investments based on that time horizon. With separate 529 plans, for instance, you can select investments based on each child's age and when they will start taking distributions to pay for college. This is particularly important if you're wanting to use an age-based allocation within the account. For more information on that, check out my other video on using a 529 account. The second pro is that you may be able to claim a larger state income tax break if you have a different account for each student. Many states offer an income tax benefit based on 529 plan contributions. Some states allow taxpayers to claim the income tax benefit per beneficiary. So if you only have one account that you're using for the entire family, that counts as one beneficiary. However, if you have multiple accounts, one for each student, then that's going to count as multiple beneficiaries, and you could potentially get a tax break for each additional account. Pro number three is that you may be able to save more. Each state has a maximum aggregate plan limit per beneficiary. So again, if you're using one account for all of your beneficiaries, you may hit that aggregate limit much faster than you would if you had one account for each one of your students. In addition, grandparents can give larger tax-free gifts if you have different accounts for each beneficiary. And that gift is limited on an annual basis based on the beneficiary. So again, if you have multiple accounts, one for each beneficiary, a grandparent who wants to contribute to all of them will have a higher limit that they can contribute to each of the beneficiary accounts. The last benefit we're going to talk about today is that it's easier to receive and track 529 gifts if you have a different account for each student. For instance, grandparents and other relatives that want to contribute to a child's 529 plan, instead of giving a traditional holiday gift, for instance, if they want to do that to a specific child, it's much easier for them to do that if that child has their own specific account. They may be reluctant to contribute to one general 529 plan if they don't know that the money is intended for one particular student. There are some drawbacks to the approach of having a different account for each beneficiary. The first and easily the biggest is that there may be fees to maintain each account. So if you're in a state or you're part of their program where they require you to pay a fee each year to maintain that particular account, then it may not make sense for you to have multiple accounts for each student, but instead to just have one broad family account that you manage and then withdraw from when the time comes. The second drawback is that more accounts mean more organization and more having to keep track of different statements and what different accounts are doing, making changes to investments to multiple accounts. So there is definitely a component of that where if you have separate accounts, it's going to require a little bit more work on your part in order to do that. Some parents may prefer to keep the simplicity of having all of their savings in one account, but the big drawback to that is that when it comes time to using that account, it becomes a lot more difficult when you have to go take money out of the account to make absolutely sure that you've got the beneficiary correct. Otherwise, what you use the money for might not be considered qualified, and you can get hit with taxes and penalties. The last drawback is that some 529 plans have minimum contribution requirements for automated investments. With automatic investing, you won't have to worry about forgetting to make your 529 plan contributions each month, which is a great advantage. However, if you have more than one plan account, it's easier to set up automatic investments rather than making manual deposits to each one. However, some 529 plans have minimum contribution requirements to use that feature. So a family with more than one 529 plan might have to commit more money each month in order to make that minimum. If you want to learn more about 529 plans, please make sure to check out my other video, 5 Tips for Choosing a 529, where I take you through exactly what you need to know in order to make sure that you pick the right account for your family. If you'd like help developing a savings strategy to make sure that you save the right amounts in the right accounts for your family by the time your students are ready for college, please make sure to click the link in the description below where you can learn how to become our client, and we can help you to develop a comprehensive funding strategy to incorporate your savings, your student loans, your school selection, and all of the other pieces of the puzzle that are going to help you lower your costs as much as possible. If you liked today's video and found it to be helpful, please make sure to click the share button below to share it with your family and friends. And if you want more videos and tips like this, please make sure to subscribe to my channel by clicking that button below, and make sure to hit the notification bell so that you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thank you and good luck going beyond the 529.